I believe through all the different steps in my life, and my faith has been a huge part of it. It's been asking myself the question, what am I here for? What is my reason for being on this planet? Discovering what my gifts were and then going after them. And from the time I was a young girl, my teachers were telling me, you are born to lead. And I was in leadership positions already as a young child, and leading, becoming an entrepreneur just was natural to step into that role. So it's been that guiding force of know what your purpose is and be open to what comes your way and be willing to have the courage to step into it.
Welcome to Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. And today I have another fantastic female guest for you listeners out there. Since I know you're going to love this podcast, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends. So for today, I have an award-winning entrepreneur, a best-selling author, speaker, and high-performance coach. She's written several books. She has many life lessons to teach us. And rather than me go on bragging about how fantastic she is, let me introduce you so she can tell you herself. So welcome, Janelle Bruland, to today's podcast.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Patty Ann. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I love your podcast topic and theme about trust and relationships, and such an important topic, especially for entrepreneurs who get focused on all kinds of different things. So,
oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Isn't that the truth? Okay, so Janelle, what I'd like you to share with our listeners is, would you tell us something about your journey that you haven't written about and that most people don't know?
Oh, wow. But I haven't written about. As I write about everything, and most people
That's
don't
what everybody
know.
says till I ask the question.
Yes, no, that's really perfect. Let me see. Something that I haven't written a lot about is the fact that just what you talk about today, about the fact that your relationships can often take a back seat to what's really most important in your life. And one of the things that I have learned since I wrote The Success Lie, in The Success Lie, I talked about how as an entrepreneur, you get everything in the way of what's most important, and you have to make those things most important. And for me, going through a really traumatic time in my life, I did everything for my girls. And I think what I've learned in my journey more recently, and I'm caring more about now, is you can't really have a wonderful relationship with anyone else until you really fix that relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think that has been a newer learning, and I've been on this journey to really learning about myself and making sure that I'm doing what I need for me so that I can then better serve others.
Okay, so I'm so interested by that answer because you've been so successful. How have you gotten to that success without having taken care of yourself? And I understand you were a single mom of 3 girls for a long time, right?
Right.
There's a lot of stuff, I'm using air quotes for the people that are just listening, mm-hmm. that can get in the way of us taking care of ourselves as a working mom. But I guess I'm surprised to hear you say, I get that we don't take care of ourselves, but we know we should. Right. So I guess I'm surprised to hear you say that you didn't know, unless I misunderstood you, that you had to put yourself first. So if that's the case, I definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah. No, it was.
I am sure there's listeners that are in the same exact boat, and they will learn so much from your wisdom.
Yes. And, it's been fascinating because I was doing all the right things, and I'd really created a nice balance in my life, making my family a first priority, creating a good work, healthy relationship with people at work and my kids and family at home. But I didn't realize that I had some things inside that I hadn't ever really dealt with till a few years ago.
Mhm.
And it came about in a really interesting way. If you want to hear just a short story
Yes,
about
please.
how I
No,
discovered it.
yes. If you're willing to share, yes.
Oh, of course.
Again, I know
Sure.
our listeners will absolutely learn from you.
Well, it was really interesting. I had an opportunity to go away with a girlfriend for a weekend and really excited for this getaway. And we had a wonderful time together. We went to California, spent some time beach walking and just good dinners and good friendship time. And it's one of those friends I don't see a lot, but when you get back together, it's one of those that you feel like you haven't been apart at all.
Pick up right where you left off.
Yes, it was wonderful. And I was on a flight back home. And
where was home at the time?
Home, Washington State. Thank you for
Washington.
So just really a short flight home. And there was 2 legs from flying from LA back to Seattle and then Seattle to Bellingham, where I live. And the first leg went fine, no problem. Got off at the SeaTac airport, went to board the next flight. I got on the plane and it was starting to get dark outside. No big deal. It's a quick flight, 30-minute flight home. And we get on the plane, and as we're buckling our seatbelts in, the pilot says, "Hey, I want you to know that there's a storm in the area, so it could be a bit of a bumpy flight." Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, it's short. I don't like turbulence, but I can do this. Well, it got very, very turbulent. And I started to feel myself have this just amazing anxiety well up. And I happened to have somebody next to me who was actually an airline flight attendant who happened to be taking a flight home as well. And she kind of so subtly went and turned the fan on above me to give me some air. And I'm gripping the seat as the plane is just really whipping around. And finally the pilot,
that person next to you, you're
but
go ahead.
Yeah. And so anyway, finally the pilot says that, okay, we're going to land. And I'm thinking, oh, thank goodness we are landing. I'm going to be on the ground. Everything is well. Well, it was an incredibly turbulent ride and we couldn't do it. And the pilots came back on and they said, "I'm so sorry for your safety. We're going to have to turn back around and take you to Seattle." So we came back to Seattle, got off the plane. I walked off. I'm looking at the passengers around me, a little bit shaken, but everybody seems fine. I get off the plane and I completely fall apart. I had this just unbelievable meltdown in the middle of the SeaTac airport. I'm sobbing. I call my husband. I said, "I am not getting on another plane going home. You need to come and get me." I was just distraught. And I thought, what is going on with me right now? Well, I went into the lounge, had a wonderful Alaska agent talk to me and just say, "This happens sometimes. It's okay. We're going to get you on a bigger plane home. You'll be fine."
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was really, really strange. And once I got through that and had that experience happen, I thought something is going on. And through that journey of discovery, I learned that I had some unresolved trauma in my body from all of the things that I had gone on with in my own personal life when I was left with my girls at a very young age, and everything about me was about taking care of them. And for the moms and dads who are listening, you love your kids more than anything. And when you go through hell on earth in your home, you're not thinking about you, you're thinking about your kids.
Absolutely.
And even though I did all the right things, and I really felt that I'd gotten my life back together, was really proud of it. I'm happily remarried for many years. And there was this unresolved trauma that I had no idea was there, that all of a sudden decided it was time to come out. And I was in a safe enough space, I believe now in my learnings, to really be able to address that.
How did you know that's what it was? Like you said, you discovered. How did you discover that?
A great, great question. So my husband and I are very into having our best health and longevity. We want to live a long, healthy life, and we want to be proactive about it. So as we were approaching our 50th birthday, we thought, well, what are some things we can do, some tests we can take in order to find out how to take the best care of ourselves? And I really had appreciated a book by Dr. Daniel Amen, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And when I read his book, I saw that he was doing SPECT scans as a preventative measure to be able to really learn about your brain and how it operates. And we had talked to some other couples who had actually husband and wives that had done this and thought, we really learned a lot. It helped us communicate better. It was great for our relationship. So we were all in and we thought, let's do this SPECT scan just as part of our health routine. And when we did that scan, my brain actually showed that I had PTSD, symptoms of PTSD that I had no idea that I actually had and had been living with for so many years and did not know that I had it. So it really was fascinating to find out that information and honestly quite shocking. And I really believe that things happen for a reason, and it was meant to be that it was discovered when it was, so that I could be in a place.
What did he
to
see
really
in the
do
brain? I'm familiar with Daniel Amen. For the listeners, he's somewhat controversial. Some people swear by him. Some people think he's a quack, to be totally honest.
Sure.
Right. And I know people in both camps, and I am totally Switzerland. I am
Me
totally.
too.
So what did he see in the brain? What was lighting up that showed? Because I do know the brain can show PTSD, just like the brain can show depression. But for the listeners that aren't familiar, what is it that showed up?
Right. Well, what showed up in the brain is he had actually showed me a scan of what a normal, quote unquote, normal brain looks like and what's lit up and what's not lit up. And there is in the center of your brain, there's a place called the amygdala, which is considered the fight or flight center of your brain. And that really should be in a healthy brain that's in a calm state, that should be dark. But in a brain that has had chronic stress that's gone on for years, or a very acute stress, an acute traumatic event, that can cause that amygdala to go into this firing position and not be able to shut off, especially if it's chronic, happening over and over again. So when they showed me my brain scan, they said, this is your amygdala, and it was lit up like the 4th of July. So no matter that I had all of these great success habits in place, I had this wonderful, blessed life and blessed family, I did not know that I was in this state of fight or flight, and was living with it. I had adapted to it and was a really successful entrepreneur and had really strong and steady relationships. There wasn't issues like that. But yet, once I discovered it, it was, oh, well, that's why I'm so hypervigilant. That's why I'm so protective of everything and everyone. I am ready. I am ready for the next attack. And I felt like that was normal.
Poised. Yeah. So then what did you, and so what was it about the airplane situation? It was something out of your control. It's something that wasn't predictable. Like, what was it that made the symptom appear then?
You know, that's really interesting. And there's been different thoughts on it. Part of it, I think, is my brain was really noodling over the fact that this is fascinating. I feel fine. My life is great. And I have this brain that looks like this. And I think that my body, my brain began to process this information. And what it took was a stressful event like that turbulent plane ride to just snap it into place and just go, okay, it's time to deal with this now. And I also believe that I was in a safe place that, you hear of people that have had abuse as a child or different things happen. It's locked away so tightly in their brain. They have a great life. But all of a sudden, they're 60, 70 years old and they have this wake up. And people say it happens in different ways for different people. But it was fascinating. And I learned a lot about how to really improve that mind, body, soul connection with myself and how to really be fully whole. And that's only helping me in coaching my clients who now it's amazing when I talk about, it's like, wow, how many entrepreneurs have been through really tough stuff. And there are still pieces that they haven't really dealt with or don't really understand.
I mean, my joke with entrepreneurs is they've all either been homeless, lived in their car, went bankrupt, or had a traumatic childhood. Like all of them have a story. You listen to all of them.
I know.
But tell me what, and I'm not so sure that's unique to entrepreneurs, to be honest. I think life is stressful. I think it's the nature of the beast, if you will. And it's the degree to which it is stressful, and then how we manage the stress. And we could argue from now until the cows come home, nature versus nurture. It's actually quite fascinating.
It is.
But for the listeners, what was it that helped you the most work through that process? Because I have a background as a clinical psychologist, and I do all my coaching too, with high performance, high motivation, working with couples that are entrepreneurs in a business aspect. But also I do a lot, I really do believe, with energy, right? And I feel like a lot of people that are coaching people through trauma, through difficult situations, don't deal with the trauma. They will say, do the affirmation, and they ignore the emotional reality that's being repressed. And as you know, emotions that are repressed get amplified. So which road did you go down, and how did you know which road to take? Because I can already tell you probably researched a lot. You're really smart. You were well aware of the options on how to go forward once this was revealed to you. So how did you process that and pick?
Right. Well, it definitely took some time in exploring a number of different options. And I will share what I felt worked for me. And it was a number of modalities, but really want to encourage those listening that you have to really go deep to what is working for you and what you're seeing happening for yourself. And one of the things that's hard for me, and probably hard for you and those listening, is the patience to actually go through the journey of it. Because you think, and in today's world, how quickly can we fix this, right? I can take, what's the magic pill? What's the magic formula to be able to make this work? And it really is.
It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight.
Exactly. Well, right. It's gone for so many years. So I would say probably the most helpful for me was doing things where I was actually doing work on the brain with things like neurofeedback, EMDR. So actually doing the brain work, the brain exercises to map out exactly what wasn't functioning well in the brain and being able to work on that through neurofeedback was life-changing. And it was really exciting to be able to do the brain map in the beginning and see the lit up areas, see the areas of the brain that weren't functioning at an optimal level, and then learning how to do daily exercises to work with it. And then being able to, along with a number of modalities, then 6 months later, take a new scan and have the therapist be able to say, Janelle, you have turned off the alarm. You've turned off the alarm. And that was incredible, because when you say the controversy that you've heard about Dr. Amen, and that's frankly with a lot of different trauma methods out there, is that they don't work for everyone. And I saw a therapist who actually told me that you have been diagnosed with PTSD. This is something that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life. We can manage it, but you will always have it. And now I can say with absolute confidence that that is not true, that at least not for me, because our brains, through neuroplasticity, they can change. You can retrain them. You can be able to heal that amygdala. You can calm down that fight or flight response. So that's probably the top one.
How liberating.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right. So how did you take all of this incredible growth and incorporate it into your work?
Thank you. Yes, that is really important. And I would say my number one lesson is that myself being a high achiever, you are too, our listeners are too, we tend to push through to get things done and accomplish things. We have a goal. We're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And I had to learn to completely unravel that way of thinking and to forget about the outcomes and focus on the action, to be able to, instead of force through, to allow, to just allow.
So give an example of that.
That was hard.
Give an example of that.
So as an example, doing the neurofeedback.
Mm-hmm.
When Dr. Nathan, who was my therapist for that, when we were working together on the session.
Now, was that with the Dr. Amen group or somebody different?
No, this was somebody else that specifically was working with me on brain training and neurofeedback.
Okay.
And so I had the device on. You have like almost a headband type thing that you wear so that they can actually see what's happening in your brain. And with this one particular exercise I was doing, when my brain was calm, I would hear music, and it was soothing music. When my brain started to really act up, then it would get really loud and uncomfortable. And I was really frustrated in this particular session because I kept trying harder and it wasn't working. And we took a break, and he said to me, Janelle, your usual way of execution is not going to work here.
Yeah, it's push through. Yeah.
Yes. You need to just allow. And so that was a wow moment for me, because I went, wow, that's not only how I do this, that's how I do most everything. And it's how I have gotten to be successful too. So it's really winding back and having that, again, a balance between what are those things that you push through that make sense to a certain level, and what are those things that, you know what, if this is not coming together, then maybe I need to approach it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
If this is coming together, maybe this isn't something I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a conversation with my daughter, who's now CEO of one of my companies. And we had a particular management issue. We were trying to decide what direction to go with our company. And she really felt we were going to fight, if you will, to make plan A happen. It wasn't happening. And I remember the phone call where I acquiesced, and I said, you know what? I think that plan B is what we should do. And she said to me, Mom, what are you doing? This is not how you typically do things. This is not how we win. And I said to her, sometimes we win by choosing to lose, by choosing to step back, that maybe this isn't what we're supposed to do, rather than pushing it through. So that was a business example where she kind of called me on the carpet and said, this is not your usual MO. And I said, this is the new MO. And it ended up being a much better decision.
Wisdom was just speaking.
What's that?
I think the voice of wisdom.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
It was wisdom. That's great. I'd love to meet your daughter. So you said something earlier that I just loved. And I would love for you to talk about it, because you've had so many successful companies. This is not your first rodeo, right? I mean, you have, and you've done it all. And I strongly, vehemently believe we women can have it all. And I say, remember when I gave my keynote in Dubai, I said, and the reason why I know that is because I've done it and you've done it. So please speak to that, because it drives me crazy when we are told that we can't do something that, that's interesting, because I've been spending my life doing it.
Right. Well, it's
and they love to talk about they don't like the nomenclature, do it all, harmony, balance, whatever. You don't know what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. I think the do it all goes to what is it that brings your own heart joy and what is most important to you, and then eliminate everything else. So I believe we can do it all, but I also believe that we don't have to. Mm-hmm. Therein lies the choice, that every woman out there, our daughters, as we encourage them, I believe they can do anything they set their mind to. And yet they need to know what is best for them. And as our kids are getting older, we go from being that parent that's telling them what to do, to guiding them what to do, to just listening to them and being able to allow them to do what they need to do and give them advice when they ask for it.
And to make the mistakes that we know they're making, but can't say a word. But I get what you're saying about the choices, right? And I feel that women are told career or family, or however you want to say it.
I know.
And I say that's a false choice, right? So how have you, and look, I joke all the time, for the listeners, we're both members of the Genius Network, right? And if you ever go to Genius Network or ever listen to the talks or the people there, you wouldn't get out of bed till 2:00 in the afternoon, because you have to wake up. First, you have to meditate. Then you have to write your gratitude journal. Then you have to write one note a day. Then you have to write on your chapter. Then you have to read, and then you have to work out.
That's right.
Right. And
you have to get lots of protein. And so you have to
get protein, and you have to have had a good night's sleep and hydrate. Right. And I remember when I first joined Genius, I said to my husband, and even now I sort of kind of chuckle because I see the women, very successful women I absolutely respect. They do have a routine in the morning, and now I'm being sarcastic, but I was always an early riser, but I started to get up like ridiculously early because I have 4 children, my oldest are twins, and I needed to have 3 sips of coffee before they got up. And there was no cold plunge. And I felt like, wow, I just feel like women, or us in general, there's an unrealistic expectation to what our lives are supposed to be like. And my point to you is that becomes self-limiting.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the choices. How have you done that? What have you perhaps made a choice not to do, where not to go, that's allowed you to be the successful career woman, entrepreneur, mother, wife, and overall person?
Right. Well, I would say, and it's actually a chapter in my book, Just Say No. I had to learn to really prioritize what was most important to me, not what everybody else was saying I should do, but what was most important to me, and then eliminate everything else. Because as you know, and what we see in Genius and other entrepreneur groups that we're a part of, there is so many good things to be a part of. There's so many clubs, there's so many groups, there's so many foundations and great causes and businesses where we can help. But yet you have to have a life too. So you have to figure out for yourself what's most important. And yours is not going to be a copycat of mine and mine of yours. What I did, especially as my kids were small, is I made the conscious choice that I wasn't going to join any type of board, because I was very active in my community and in my industry, that I wouldn't join a board that had meetings in the evening or on the weekends, because that was my family time that I was going to be home. And there was one particular foundation I really wanted to be a part of. And it was no, because that was going to really take time away from my kids. And I think especially for younger moms, or let's change that, moms with younger kids, that there is yes, or both. There's a season. It's maybe just you're not going to do it now, but there's going to be time to do it later. Mm-hmm. And I can't stress enough how you have to drown out the comparative voices and the things that you see on social media and what other women, other men, other successful people are doing, because that really is going to just have you second guessing yourself all day long. So surrounding yourself with those most important people in your life that you trust. So if you have a spouse, a partner who really knows you and what you want, and you talk together about, these are not only our professional goals, these are our life goals, and we're going to keep ourselves in check here, what we're going to do. And you'll get eye rolls from other people around you who aren't living like you do. I mean, just being an entrepreneur and on fire is that seems crazy to a lot of people, and they wouldn't want it. And that's okay. That's okay. But if you have the drive to go change the world, as I do, as you do, then that is how God made us. And that is what we are supposed to do. And someday we will be asked, did you use the gifts I gave you? And I want to be able to say, yes, I did. I stepped into the call. It was not easy, but I did it. Despite what maybe other people, parents, friends, colleagues are telling you to do, again, you're the one who has to answer for it.
Well, I think what you're saying is, and I feel very strongly about this as well, it's your life to live. And
so true.
And everybody loves to tell you how you should live your life, especially how mothers should live their life. Like if you just go through the last, I'll say 30 years, it might be 20, it might be 40. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a number person. But I remember the conversation of women going to the workforce after they had children. Remember the conversation of, she's going back to work? Who's going to raise those kids? They're going to be delinquents. I mean, it was like heresy. I remember that. I remember hearing that. And, my mom was widowed very young and she had to go to work. And I remember that being stigmatized. And as an adult now, I'm like, really, dude, were you going to pay her bills? Like, shut up, whatever. That's a whole different conversation. But I remember that. And now I feel like it's flipped to the other extreme. But for a while, the conversation was, are you going back and when? Right. So there was still that hybrid, if you will.
Right.
Some go, some don't. And then you have the war of the mommies because everybody likes to divide us. Right. I mean, I will tell you, if I didn't have my non-working at a home, old school term friends, every time there was a school delay or a snow delay or an early pickup, I would have been screwed.
Right.
And it was
very thankful for them.
Right. It was stressful enough as it was. And now I feel like we're at a place where, women are going back into work. And if you don't, it's like, what's wrong with you? And quite frankly, the only ones that aren't going back to work are the ones that are very well educated, that are married to very well educated men that don't need a dime. So it's so interesting how society has shifted. And yet, and I know you have a grandchild coming, and I just had one born. And I've said this for years, there is nothing, and I don't want to get political, but there's nothing in place with the states that makes it any easier to be a working mom today than it was when I did it 30 years ago.
No, that's true.
And that blows my mind. Right. So how did you negotiate that? Because, you had all these publications, you're a legacy leader. I mean, you've done what like most women listening that are entrepreneurs want to be you. So how did you do it? Well, they think they want to be you. I don't know.
Sure. It certainly wasn't easy. And I had to go against those voices because like you, I actually was in a small town community, and none of my friends worked outside the home after they had children. And I was a single mom, so I didn't have a choice at the time, and had a business that was growing and successful. And I enjoyed that. But I believe had I been married at the time, I would still be leading the business. So I had to negotiate that situation because it was hard on my kids. My kids would feel like they were different because number one, they were from a divorced home, and number two, their mommy was the only one that worked.
Did they tell you they felt different, or did you just feel that? Did you
No, they told me. Yeah, they told me that it was that there were times it was hard where I brought them to school, and I cried when I left them, and they cried when I left. And there are other reasons behind that too, obviously. So but it was definitely a challenging time. And I, like you, I had people around me. So some of these moms who were able to just run and pick up my kids were a huge help. So there was a big benefit to that as well.
To a point, though.
To a point.
It wasn't no stress there. Yeah.
Right. And I was able to, I really believe that I made some significant choices around my business and my schedule so that I could be there for my kids, to be able to come in and be a room mom or be able to participate in their activities at school. And I just hired around that. I hired people that could cover for me so that I could be there for the kids and have some balance there, because I knew I didn't want to be the parent who was never there either.
You just didn't want to be there all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So what do your girls say today? Or you only have one? They haven't started the working mom's journey yet, right?
Yeah, no, actually my oldest daughter, who is running one of my companies now, she has 3 kids. So she is navigating this now and is a working mom. But I'd like to talk about my daughter, Peyton, who's actually going to be having her first child here at the end of the month. And this was an interesting story. So the kids grew up seeing me navigate and balance between being there for everything. And they will say, Mom always said family first. So they felt that I was there. And they also saw me working and providing for the family. Mm-hmm. So now my middle daughter, Peyton, she found out she was expecting in the middle of her doctorate in psychology, and was told by friends and family, well, you certainly need to be practical, and you need to quit this doctorate because you need to be practical now. You need to get a real job so that you can be able to help take care of this baby.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious on this.
2023.
In 2023. And so again, she's almost.
You don't live in the backwoods of Appalachia.
No, this is happening today. And so anyway, we are having this conversation and I'm letting her kind of navigate her decisions. She's an adult, right? I'm here to support her if she needs me. And so after she's kind of processed this a bit, she came to me and she said, Mom, what do you think? And I said, well, because you're asking, I was 9 months pregnant with you when I started my services company. And I believe that you can finish up this doctorate and have this baby without any problem. And you have so much family and supportive community around you that it is absolutely possible. And I don't think you should quit, because you believe that your purpose is to be a psychologist. You've thought it since you were in high school. This is what you wanted to do. You wanted to help young people who are struggling with mental health issues. This is what you wanted to do all of your life, and you need to finish it. So here she is today, 9 months pregnant, and she just completed in the last week her dissertation proposal, and it was accepted and passed. And she was so proud of herself, and I was so proud of her for her hard work to do it and to show that she could do it. Now, granted, she has lots of support around her, and that may not be the choice that somebody else would make. And it doesn't matter. It's what was the choice that my daughter wanted to make for her. And when I said that, I thought she should continue. She said, Mom, that's what I really want to do. So, well, then that's what you need to do. And here she is going forward with it and making it happen. And fortunately, she's got a very supportive partner as well. And so life is good there. But that was so fascinating to me. And you bringing this up just made me think about it. Here's a case right now in 2023 where women today are still being questioned on their choices between career and family.
It's so interesting. I wonder if I feel like being on the coast, like the tri-state area. I don't feel that at all. But I also don't have a daughter 9 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually blows my mind. So what you're saying is, as much as things have changed, in some ways things really haven't changed all that much. And as we're having this interview, the world is on fire in the Middle East, and the rise of anti-Semitism is just mind-boggling for me. And I feel like it's been under the surface, just bubbling, and now for some reason it's been given permission to explode. And I thought we've come so far. And I guess what you're saying is also, I thought we've come so far with how women are in society, and really to have the choice to do whatever the hell we want.
Right.
And yet people, as I said earlier, they love to live your life for you. So I know you just published a book called The Success Lie: 5 Simple Truths to Overcome, Overwhelm, and Achieve Peace of Mind. And I know you live that message. So share with us, what was the inspiration for the book?
Well, the inspiration is I found myself, of course, running a business, being a parent, all of the things, having an endless to-do list, that I found myself overwhelmed at times and just feeling like I was on a treadmill going nowhere.
Fast.
And really needed to make the decision to get off of that treadmill, and realize that it was a lie that I was buying into, the success lie of you've got to do more and more to be successful. Even though I took steps to live the life I wanted to live, which I've said here from the very beginning, no matter what, there's still going to be these voices from around you, the voices of society, the cultural norms are going to tell you what you should be doing. And it's hard not to listen to that. And so really the book is about, it's your choice to live your best life. And you're the only person that can decide what that looks like. And that's such an important journey that we all need to take. And so the book has some really practical exercises and tools to help you really unwrap and take a good hard look at your life, at the 7 main life areas. I have a life wheel, similar. Zig Ziglar talks about his life wheel and the life areas, and how usually most of the problems we have in life aren't because of the bumps in the road. It's because we're not giving proper attention to all of our life and having that proper balance that we need to have. So it helps you walk through assessing what your life looks like now, what you can change to improve it so that you can really be living the life of significance you're called to.
Okay, so what is the who and what, 2 questions,
Okay.
has been most influential in helping you live the life that you want? And at what stage of your life did they show up?
Wow. Well, the first person that comes to mind is my dad. He was my hero, and obviously he showed up before me. So I have very fond memories growing up in a very loving home where he was always really supportive. And he was an entrepreneur. He had a dairy farm, great place for a girl to grow up with the cows and the chickens and dogs and cats. And
I'm thinking the ice cream from the dairy farm, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah. We had our own milk from the tank. I mean, all the things. It was just an idyllic childhood for sure. And I didn't realize until I was an adult that he was an entrepreneur. And he, with a busy dairy farm that he was running, he really could be working 24/7. But yet he didn't.
It's a very hard life.
Oh, I know. And I didn't realize it until I became adult and was an entrepreneur myself. But every night, he would be in for dinner at 6:00. We would sit down together as a family. I had 4 siblings and my parents. We'd sit down together as a family. And then after dinner, I would go do my homework or whatever. And I didn't realize he was going back outside to finish his chores. And now I'm sure he would have rather just worked late until he was done. But he was so committed to our family that he quit, or paused, I should say, and would go finish up his work after we were off doing something else or after we were in bed. And so that was just such a great example to me of someone who obviously needed to do his business and provide for his family and do it with excellence, but that his family was first. And so he really created that example for me and set a lot of really wonderful traditions that then I've carried on. So that's probably number one. And on his 91st birthday, I actually did an interview with him. So
is he still alive?
He just passed away this summer, actually.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah. And on his 91st birthday, which was just this January, they came over for dinner, he and my mom. And I said to him, Dad, would you mind if you sat down with me by the fireplace and we had a fireplace chat? Can I interview you? And so I have this beautiful interview with him where I asked him that I recorded it. Yes, it's on my Intentional Leadership podcast. And it is about living a legacy. And he tells from his 91 years of wisdom and experience of what's most important. And
I want to hear this.
It was so precious and really, really hard to have him leave us this summer. But yet he lived such a full and wonderful life that I would love to be able to do the same and walk in his steps.
That is beautiful. And I believe I feel that from you. And what about the what? The what that influenced your success?
I would say that the what also comes from an example from my dad about doing what you're called to do and doing it with excellence. So I believe through all the different steps in my life, and my faith has been a huge part of it, it's been asking myself the question, what am I here for? What is my reason for being on this planet? Discovering what my gifts were and then going after them. And from the time I was a young girl, my teachers were telling me, you are born to lead. And I was in leadership positions already as a young child. And so leading, becoming an entrepreneur just was natural to step into that role. So it's been that guiding force of know what your purpose is and be open to what comes your way and be willing to have the courage to step into it.
That's great. That's great. Okay. I have two more questions.
Okay.
What's and it can't be yours. What's the last book you reread and why?
The last book that I reread and why. Good to Great by Jim Collins.
And why?
Why? Because, wow, that's just been a business classic for me. I remember reading that as a young entrepreneur once I had a team around me, and how that really had some great principles of how you deeply examine your company and your team and how you're doing and how you take yourself and your company from good to great. And it gives a lot of examples of companies who have done just that. So that was really
I will challenge you with that, though.
Sure.
There are many. It's a great book, to your point. But sidebar, a lot of the several companies in that book have come to collapse. But that's, I think, because of failed leadership. But that's a different conversation.
Sure.
And then my last question to you is, what is the one song you can't live without?
Oh, wow. I love music and a big variety of different type of music too. But the first song that came to mind when you said that is one that we sung at my dad's funeral, and that's It Is Well With My Soul. And no matter what we go through in our life, if we are right on the inside, then we can be that light to everyone around us. And even in these dark, scary times, truly scary times that we're living in, we can give from that light within us.
I think that song. I don't think I'm familiar with it, or maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's an old hymn.
Oh, it's a religious song. Okay.
It might be When Peace Like a River might be the title, but I think it is Well With My Soul. And it's just the chorus is just really beautiful about that. No matter what happens, that everything is well with your soul. And I know there'll be people listening that will go, oh yes, I sang that as a little girl. I still know that today.
Okay. So Janelle, I want you to unabashedly plug your book, tell people where they can get it, and tell people how they can learn more about you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, go ahead and go to my website called thesuccess.life. And that's where you'll find information on the book, The Success Lie, as well as a link to my Intentional Leadership podcast. I have a weekly newsletter that goes out with some wonderful success tips that you can put in place every single day to really help you pause and take charge of your life, take back control, and really live that life that you want to live.
Okay, great. So I urge everybody, you already heard her brilliance. We barely touched the surface. I urge everybody to go get Janelle's The Success Life, 5 Simple Truths to Overcome Overwhelm and Achieve Peace of Mind. And what I love about Janelle and her mission is that she keeps it simple. And I urge you not to underestimate the power of simplicity. So thank you so much, Janelle, for being on this podcast today. This has been such a wonderful journey. And if I could steal more time from you, I would absolutely do so. I know our listeners have gotten so much wisdom, but I want to respect your time. So I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Patty Ann. It has been my absolute pleasure, and what fun this conversation has been. And I hope that our listeners here today are getting some really valuable things that they can take and put in place.
Great. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And that concludes today's episode of Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. As I mentioned, I know you are going to love this podcast. So make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, be well.